It is Sunday, the 12th of June 2022. In today's Skidmark, I'm going to ask a few questions that the leadership of the West should have asked themselves before they embarked on this Ukraine expedition. The first question I have is, why does America have military bases all over the world? If you look at the map that I'm showing now, you have to ask yourself why. They, in fact, are operating like a colonial power. And they are all over the world in military force. For what? Not to protect America, but to force their will onto people. The most recent fiasco was when Biden made a statement that Africa should not buy wheat from Russia because that will be breaking the sanctions, and the countries that do it will be sanctioned as well. Where the hell does that man come from? What does he think America is really? America is not the world's king and we are all these slaves. Why can he not focus on his own country? His country is falling to pieces. His economy is on the shoots down to the sewer farm. Inflation is out of control. Crime is out of control. And yet, he finds it clever to make a statement like Africa cannot buy wheat from Russia. The second stupidity. Where in the world did America get the power from to stop Venezuela from producing oil? And now they are granting them permission to supply a little bit of oil to the EU. How is it possible that America can dictate to every country on the globe? There's very few countries in this world that is not under American sanctions. And their lapdogs, the EU, are running after them and implementing the same nonsense. Look at this map. This is the energy supplies for Europe. Before Ursula von der Crazy embarked on her absolute idiotic sanctions war with Russia, she should have sat down and looked at this map and asked herself, is it a good plan to agitate Russia? Because what has the EU really achieved? They've cut the EU off energy, they cut the EU off food, they cut the EU out of vital elements for their industry. In short, they basically destroyed their own economy on instruction from America. The time of the American global control is over. But these newcons and libtards does not understand it, and they don't want to accept it. America wants to dictate to everybody in the world how and what they must do. Those days are over. The Ukraine expedition brought it onto the front pages. Europe cannot exist without Russia. It is just a simple fact. But with NATO, they are forever poking the bear. And they are imagining that they can dictate to Russia. They cannot dictate to Russia. If NATO and Russia goes to war, NATO will be pulverized. Yes, the Russians will take shots, but the Russians will win. This madness of throwing all those weapons and ammunition into the Ukraine has effectively disarmed the West. There are commentators that are of the opinion that if NATO gets involved with a war with Russia, within 5 to 7 days NATO will be out of ammunition. America has allowed their armed forces to be infiltrated by this liberal woke nonsense. The American armed forces, the Marines, used to be the top of the pile when it comes to American forces. Even the Marines has been diluted with women and all this sexual confusion and all of that. I listened to an ex-Marine guy that mentioned that statistics had showed that the Marines had to lower their standards tremendously to accommodate this woke shit. Now they have that problem. But the politicians in Washington, they seem to be unaware of it. And they keep on looking for trouble. They are now trying to see if they can get a war going with China. That will turn out very bad. The US depends a lot on their naval forces. But if that navy takes on China, that navy is gone, because the Chinese will sink those ships faster than what you can count. But the Americans, they live in this fantasy world that they are the global superpower. The Ukraine expedition has secondly drained Europe and the West of most of their cash reserves. The ironic reality is the Western countries that donated all those billions of dollars to Ukraine, they made donations that they did not have. They went and they printed money to give to Ukraine. And in that process, they ran up their own inflations. Today we're sitting with a Europe that is economically in a very bad place. And then you go and you add this green maniacs into the soup. Those green maniacs are going to destroy the industrial capacity of the West. What is happening at this point in time, in front of our eyes, is that the world is redividing in the West and the rest. And the tragedy is that the West is a small minority. But they don't seem to take note of this. Look at the trade expansion between Russia and India, between Russia and China, between China and India, between Russia and Africa, between China and Africa, between Russia and South America, China and South America. Iran is now also getting very active in Venezuela. These things are happening, and this idiotic leadership of the West are totally unaware of how the world is changing right under their feet. They are going to wake up one morning and come to a reality shock. And I don't know how they're going to cope with it. The Americans need to pull their forces back into America to protect America. The American politicians must stop pumping billions of dollars into the rest of the world for some stupid ideology and spend the money on their own people. The American infrastructure is falling apart, but yet they find a way to justify pumping 60 billion plus into the Ukraine. Americans better wake up. Europeans better wake up. The Europe that you have known is going to be gone in the next 6 months. And the big joke for me in this whole packet is Britain. I hear some general made a statement that Britain is a global force, military and economically. What bullshit is that? That man shouldn't do lines before he makes statements like that. The fact of the matter is, the British economy is broken, in my opinion, beyond repair under the current political leadership. The British military force that this guy talks about is a joke. The Royal Navy cannot even keep rubber ducks full of migrants off their shores. How do they want to go and make a war? They just need to go back in history and look what happened to them in the Falklands. I am absolutely disgusted in the leadership of the so-called West. And I am actually very, very happy that I'm sitting here at the southern tip of Africa and my country is part of the BRICS bloc. This sanctions madness needs to be stopped. If they stop all the sanctions on Russia today, tomorrow the oil price will go down. Tomorrow the gas prices will go down in Europe. But they won't do it because they are on a mad expedition satisfying some power-hungry maniacs. And the ordinary people on the streets are paying for this. I'm going to repeat this. The only outcome for the collective West is the population must revolt and remove all these political elites and corrupt politicians, remove them from power and from society. Otherwise, we are all doomed. The days of the EU is over. The days of NATO is over. And if I look carefully at what's happening in America, I think the United States is over. There are states in there that needs to take their own destiny in their own hands and go for it alone. Because the combined thing that is sitting there on the map is no longer working. People chose to ignore cultural realities. And that is going to backfire. The Russians are laughing at the immorality in the West. Putin made a joke when he spoke to some Russian entrepreneurs and said, now they have even named their inflation after me. These people are absolutely jokers. And I cannot understand how the collective West, the people of the collective West, allowed this to happen. Look at what is happening to white Western countries. In England, I don't think the British are still, the genuine English people are still a majority. Maybe here and there in some counties. But in general, there's a problem. London is already Londonistan. Same in Sweden. The Swedish people are no longer the majority in their own country. France, there are big areas in France, same issue. So all these white populations are being diluted and they will stop to exist. You will get pockets of resistance of genuine nationalists that will resist it. But all these conglomerations, the days are over. Look at how the Chinese and the Russians are operating. Yes, they've got the BRICS bloc, but they don't dictate to the BRICS countries what to do in their own countries. And the British and the French came into Africa and imposed their will on African countries. And today they are hated for it. The Americans is doing the same thing. And those days are over. And the sooner we, the normal people, accept that, the sooner reality will come back to the world that we live in. Immorality is one of the major things that contributes to the eventual fall of empires. Immorality and corruption. Just look around at the levels of immorality in the West. It is shocking. Good family principles is no longer important. All you see is this rampant, I don't have words for it. You must forgive me. I'm not a natural English speaker. English is my second language. But if I look at the Biden administration specifically, how they are forcing these sexually confused and, I don't even want to go on to it, they put them into all their leading positions and then they enforce them onto us. And the media is playing along. I don't know, but from the things that I have learned these past few months from looking at a lot of videos from Russia, the Russian population, they do not tolerate this. Yes, there are gays in Russia, but they are in their little corners and they don't have gay parades in the streets because the population will sort them out if they go into the streets. And I don't know where this is going to end, but we are where we are because there are idiots in charge in the West.